question we get a lot is there a kingdom diet? Is there a certain kind of diet that is more spiritual than the other? Is there a certain kind of food intake that will increase your spirituality or get you closer to God or raise your consciousness? Is there a whole thing about the quality of the food dictates the quality of your consciousness or the quality of your spiritual life? That whole question, this whole discussion, very common. And so this might be the first of many talks about spiritual diets, but let's get into this and see how it goes. So first things first, is there a kingdom diet? This was a popular discussion when I was in ministry school out in Bethel. And when I was there, a lot of teachers discussed this, but many, many, many more students discussed this. And we would be in the grocery stores having debates and looking at different products and etc. A lot of talk about toxins or the way a certain animal was treated or raised, certain things that affected one's pineal gland or did not affect their pineal gland, etc. All of this was about maybe this will affect your spiritual sight, or maybe this will affect the way you hear from God, or your ability to hear from God, and etc. And what about the Daniel fast? The Daniel fast, or the Daniel diet, is a whole thing that's based on the prophet Daniel's dietary and spiritual experiences in the book of Daniel, of course. And here they were prisoners in a strange new land. They didn't want to defile themselves, though, with foreign foods. They were being prepared to enter the king's court. But in this preparation, they were fed certain foods that were supposed to make them healthier and stronger, but they didn't want to eat those foods because they saw that as defiling themselves, especially the meat. So they made a deal with the people that were grooming them, and they said, let us eat only vegetables and other items and not your foods because they will defile us. In the end, they were surprisingly stronger and more healthy than those who were not on the Daniel fast. And they wanted to do amazing things in the book of Daniel, like walk through a blazing furnace with Jesus. So not too shabby. So what is the Daniel fast? Well, to put it briefly, the Daniel fast is a partial fast that focuses very, very heavily on vegetables and other healthy whole foods. Whole foods, that's the key term. It's not just a grocery store. And it leaves out any animal sources of protein. It worked then, but the question is, would it work now? And is it the right diet for now? Other questions, what about the detox diets we always hear about? Do they work? Are they worth doing? What diet can we eat to live the most spiritual life? Enter the Rhema Diet. Enter the Rhema Diet. When we talk about what diet is best for our spiritual life, we are actually focusing on one particular part of our triune being, our body. We're focusing on one particular part of our triune being, our body. And that is not to say that we're not being spiritual, by the way, because every part of our three-part being affects each other. So we're focusing on our body, but that is affecting the other two parts of us as well. Health and spirituality go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. If our body is unhealthy, our soul will quickly be affected. And they both will begin to then affect our spirit. We are a triune being. The three are married to each other. And what happens in one ripples out to the other two. If something affects our soul, it ripples to our body and spirit. If something affects our body, it ripples to our soul and spirit. So a diet is particularly focused on our body, but it affects the other two. So you can see that you can't really separate one from the other two for very long in your conversation about pretty much anything. So health and spirituality are very, very different, but they're very, very closely related. They're entwined with each other. They are not the same, but they're very closely related. They are entwined. And with all of that said then, what sort of diet or what sort of food do we really want to eat? What sort of diet and foods do we... Let's talk about that now. First things first, the less processed, the better. There's a reason why Whole Foods grocery store is so popular with health people, health fans. There's a reason why Whole Foods is called Whole Foods. The less processed, the better. The more it's in its natural state, the better. So you really want to try to eat food that is, or is as close to possible to its whole and complete form, its natural state. And now meats, processed foods, sugars, and many forms of dairy should be either eliminated or cut down dramatically. Now, meats, if you are hunting and you catch an animal, then that is probably as close to its whole natural form as possible. So that's always better than a piece of meat you find in a grocery store. But meats, processed foods, sugars, and many forms of dairy should be eliminated or cut down dramatically. This can be hard to do in the US or in the West because I know that these things are literally surrounding us everywhere we go. Now, this is easier said than done for some people, and it's easier for some people than it is for others. Now, I love, for example, Greek yogurt, and really most forms of yogurt. So I still eat a fair amount of that, to be honest. And luckily, I mean, this is a very healthy thing to eat for most people, so we're okay there. I would like to slowly cut down on my dairy, but it's better to have an evolution, a slow elimination, than just a total revolution in like cold turkey. So it's okay to slowly evolve towards what I'm talking about than to just cut off everything cold turkey. But the point is that these foods are not really the best foods to eat. And if you can intelligently eliminate them and slowly evolve away from them, all the better, all the better. Remember that what we eat has an impact on our body, soul, and spirit. This is a key issue. And while different people react differently to different foods on a physical, spiritual, and energetic level, most of the time one thing is true, and that is the more we eat junk food, the more we eat sugars and meats and processed foods, the more we are likely to react poorly on an energetic level. And this can absolutely affect our soul mind, our soul heart, and etc. It's true that one person might have an easier time digesting meat, for example, than another person, but in general, meat is not something that should be really eaten often. It's not something that you should consume often, if at all. If you can eliminate it, even better. And for example, just because they can digest it more easily doesn't make it right, is what I'm trying to say. One person might be able to drink a six-pack of beer more easily than another person and not be drunk. But that doesn't necessarily mean that drinking the six-pack of beer is a healthy thing to do often, or every day, or at all. So that can have a negative impact both spiritually and physically. So with all of that said, what are some of the worst things we can eat? What are some of the worst things we can put into our body? Let me talk about that next. Substitute sugars. Substitute sugars are the first thing on my list, or more accurately, you can call them artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners are no bueno. They are one of the worst things to intake, and especially to intake regularly. Now, what do I mean by artificial sweeteners? I do not mean honey or maple syrup or agave. I mean all the sugar substitutes that people add to their coffee, for example. These man-made sweeteners that are not sugar, they're like aspartame or saccharin. I heard of one story, a guy worked at a company where aspartame was used and it was added to the product, and they would have to replace the pipes that would transport the aspartame to the product because the aspartame would eat through these metal pipes after a while. It's really concerning when I heard that. So these man-made sweeteners, these artificial sweeteners, are not good. You don't want to have these in your diet. And the human body has really never seen anything like these before, so it reacts poorly to these things. So, no substitute sugars. Next on that list, we have an item that probably won't surprise you. It is preservatives and pesticides. This is more man-made things, more man-made stuff. So this is one of the reasons that the organic thing is really taking off today. We're trying to avoid man-made things that we put in our body, the more man-made things that are in our food that are then in our body that are not really meant to be there. What's next? Believe it or not, what is next is alcohol. So alcohol is after that, and I know there are a lot of studies about alcohol and its benefits to the heart, and especially wine. Red wine is really good for you, but I'm telling you it's really not that good for you. There's a lot of other studies that talks about the effects alcohol has on your body, and especially in your spiritual walk, it really is not that great. Now that's not to say that I don't enjoy a glass of wine if I'm on Thanksgiving Day with all my family, or if my dad wants to have a talk together and he opens a beer and he's like, come on son, let's go talk. I will, because I'm not going to sacrifice relationship for a spiritual high that day or something like that. But even then, I have to say that I often feel physically off afterwards. I often feel tired or just slow, want to go to bed, that kind of thing. And what's more, I can't say I've ever seen anyone look better when I look at them in the spirit after they've consumed alcohol. Because I can see in the spirit, I don't see people looking amazing after they had a drink or three. Not going to happen. So I've seen them look worse very often, and this is very common. The next category is one that was a major bummer for me. Simple starches. So white pasta versus brown pasta, to put it in layman's terms, white rice versus brown rice, white bread versus brown bread, simple carbs versus complex carbs. My sister is very much into nutrition. She told me this when I was quite a few years younger, and I was really bummed out for a long time. The problem with simple carbs is that they break down super quickly, really, really quickly. And in fact, your body treats them like they're sugar. And sugar is something that's on our no good list. It's on our no-no list. So there you are. What about dairy now? We know it's good for your bones and such. And I earlier said that I love Greek yogurt, right? Yes, and that is why dairy is not on the top of the no-no list. Yet in general, it doesn't react well with most people, and spiritually there's an impact too. So be careful with dairy. So for example, I've switched from milk to almond milk. I don't eat as much Greek yogurt, and I'm slowly, hesitantly moving away from Greek yogurt, that kind of thing. It does have a lot of good nutrients and minerals, but if you eat too much, and too much is different for different people, it will have a negative impact. It really is best if you can avoid dairy altogether. Now, if you eat yogurt with live and active cultures, for example, that probably is fine. And in my case, it's good for my stomach because I have a somewhat weak stomach. But in most cases, it's really better if you eliminate dairy altogether. And things like ice cream are delicious and I love them, but they don't interact well with our bodies, and they are spiritually not helpful. Again, if you want to take your children out for ice cream and your parents come with you and everyone's having ice cream, it's not going to kill you to have an ice cream cone. It's probably going to be better for the relationship because Rhema's about families, right? But if you're talking about a spiritual diet, ice cream should not be part of that. It should be a one-up or a one-off, not something that happens all the time. Get your nutrients, but avoid or eliminate dairy. Similar to the Daniel fast, the Rhema Diet wants to eliminate animal proteins, and that is what these are. That is what these are at the end of the day. So we're kind of standoffish on dairy. Fast foods, food at the fair you might eat, fried foods, absolutely what we would call processed foods and man-affected, let's say, not whole or natural in any way. So that's an obvious on the no-no list. And then meats. Yes, obviously meat is on the no-no list. Now, chicken and fish are very healthy to eat, and I do eat them from time to time. Jesus ate fish, you're not going to break any major rules by eating fish. They also happen to be delicious, and they are less harmful. They're the least harmful of all the meats, I would say. So they are the easiest to digest than all the meats, I would say. So if you need to have some meat, these are good from time to time. Not regularly, but they are good. And if you need to slowly wean yourself off meat, then chicken and fish are a great bridge from meat eater to veggie eater. You can get all the vitamins, minerals, and proteins you need from a vegetarian diet, however, and I do, as you can probably tell, and I do tend to steer people away from meats and towards a vegetarian diet. As very similar to the Daniel fast, the Rhema diet is very much focused on vegetable proteins, and that is because spiritual health, and I believe that is a big impact on your spiritual health. Now, I understand that I'm probably attacking what are probably your favorite foods here, and that's something that is not lost on me. This isn't something, again, that you need to change overnight. However, it's a process like anything else here on earth, and so evolution beats revolution when it comes to changing your diet. Don't go cold turkey. You're going to hate it, and you probably won't be able to stick to it. Slowly but surely, it's a walk. It's a process. One thing that will help is that you will begin to feel the benefits as you work your way more and more into this Rhema diet. And that absolutely will make it easier as you start to see the benefits. Remember that whole foods, not the grocery store, but actual whole foods that are plant-based are the ones that humans resonate with best. It's the ones that humans resonate best, body, soul, and spirit, on all three levels of our being. After you eat whole plant-based foods, you really are less likely to feel bloated or sluggish or tired or etc. And if you look at someone in the spirit after they are living this diet, they will always look better. They always look best after this diet. So it's no wonder that the Daniel fast and the Rhema diet are so similar. There's no wonder. They are very healthy for you, both physically and energetically and even spiritually. They really are. Adam and Eve weren't eating fried chicken in the Garden of Eden after all. There's no KFC there, right? So let's build on that. Plant-based whole foods resonate with us best on our three levels of being. They resonate best with us on our three levels of being. Plant-based whole foods. Plant-based whole foods. They resonate best with us on our triune being. They are digested very easily, we get a lot out of them, and they are much less likely to make us sick after we eat them. That's what this is all about. So we've gone through some of the foods to avoid, and we've laid out some of the basics of the Rhema diet. Before you consider diving in head first, again, I know I'm repeating this, but it is very important. Before you consider diving in head first, understand that this is a process. And it's a process to get into for many people, and you need to take it slow. You need to be easy on yourself, and you need to take it slow. For many people who are used to eating a lot of the foods that I've kind of mentioned here or listed here on the no-no list, the Rhema diet can seem really terrible and can get some people into trouble too, especially if they go cold turkey. So if one had to make a major switch to move into the Rhema diet, they would probably feel like they were denying themselves constantly, and they would feel like they were denying themselves constantly from the foods that they are used to and that their body is used to, and maybe their soul is used to, soul food and comfort food and all that good stuff. So they might be causing more problems for themselves and the body or the soul or the spirit, all three levels, because again, we're triune beings, and that is why we really say take it slow, take it slow. So for example, in your body, your stomach might feel upset, your stomach might feel off, your body might feel tired, you might feel weak, your mind, you might feel down, you might feel easily annoyed, you might get frustrated quickly, and it goes on. And the point is, if you don't see any changes happen, either in your body or your spiritual experiences, and you're experiencing these bad things, so you're not seeing any good changes happen, in your body, your spirit, or your soul, and you're seeing bad changes happen, like you're upset in your stomach, you feel tired, you're easily annoyed, you might think that the cost is totally outweighing the benefits of this Rhema diet. But stick to it. It does take time. And yes, for many people, it is not easy. And that is why I say that although the Rhema diet is very, very good for you, I promise it is best to work your way into it. It's best to go slow, to evolve into it. It's just like the sanctification trail at the end. It's slow and it's steady, with a little bit of pain and a lot of growth. It's the same kind of thing. And the way to do this, the way to do the Rhema diet best starts in your spirit, which is kind of ironic since the diet affects your body first. But the way to start moving there is to start at the spirit. Pray to God in your spirit and just ask Him for help and guidance. And He might even tell you, well, cut this food out first, cut that food out first, eat more of this food, eat more of that food. Work with Him in your spirit as you affect your body first. Then go to your soul. Go to your soul next. Change the way that you're thinking. Change your focus to the why you're doing this. Why are you doing this diet? What is the yes that you have that allows you to say no to the foods you might want? What is your yes? This will become easier if you stick to it, because you'll notice changes begin to happen on both a physical and a spiritual level. A physical and a spiritual. And as you grow in all three areas of your being, you'll even begin to find that certain foods will begin to resonate more with you than they did before. Certain foods will look better to you than they did before. And this, by the way, is the reason that the Rhema diet is so similar to the Daniel fast. which, by the way, is very similar to many Buddhist diets and many other spiritual diets out there. The more in tune with our body, soul, and spirit we become, the more we begin to draw upon, or I guess to be drawn to, what best nourishes our body, soul, and spirit. And this is a lot like the 8 anchors. It's called the 8 anchors, which are guidelines to spiritual living in Rhema for behavior. They guide behavior and actions. And at first, these 8 anchors seem difficult to follow and maybe even a little restrictive. They need to be rules that we have to follow because we have beliefs and thoughts and actions of our own coming in to Rhema that are fallen, restrictive, limiting, and the 8 anchors kind of draw the real powerful son or daughter of us out. And so those anchors are good for us, but they seem difficult and restrictive at first. The more spiritual we become, the more we don't even notice the 8 anchors because we just begin to live naturally more spiritually. And so it's a similar idea with the Rhema Diet. Similar idea with the Rhema Diet. This is because the anchors encourage lifestyle that resonates with a more spiritual being. So the more spiritual we become, the more we live like that anyway. It's a natural progression. We live like that naturally as we become more spiritually in tune. So too is it with the Rhema Diet. The more spiritual we become, the more we begin to draw, or I guess to be drawn to these foods naturally. And it might seem restrictive at first, but only at first. Only at first. The more we grow spiritually, the more we will want those foods naturally. The we grow spiritually, we have behaviors naturally. We grow spiritually, we are drawn to foods naturally. There's a growth and a progression as we go down this sanctification trail. So start slowly if you need to, and move from where you are to where you need to go, slowly, a progression, an evolution. Not to say that you are devolved and you're evolving, but just a growth, a slow and steady growth. And it's okay to start slowly as long as you are going to your goal. So don't give up. Whatever you do, don't give up, because the Rhema Diet actually will lead to better health. It'll lead to better health for your body, your soul, and your spirit. That's all for today. Hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.